Hello, this is Jim Distortion, doing a daily short for Distortion's Got Issues. I wanted to tell you about my conclusions for not having a phone on the internet home in the evening for a week. Firstly, let me address anyone who thinks that it wasn't enough time, nothing changes, and also the other comment negatively was we're just looking for attention. Obviously, I'm looking for attention. That's why I do videos every day. And as far as I'm concerned, looking for attention is fine as long as you're doing it for the right reasons. If I'm learning to grow as a human being and listening to my child and taking notice of the things around me, what difference does it make to you? I have no problem with people being negative about what I do. When you address me with a comment, I'll answer it. And if you don't like the answer to that, that's your problem. I don't care. Why did my wife and I go without internet and phones? Simply because we were finding ourselves in a rut every night of sitting there on either edges of the sofa, not talking to each other, not interacting with anything, watching TV programs. One of us would be watching, one of us would be ignoring, the other one on the phone. So, it was getting to the point where it needed to be addressed, and we're adults, so that's what we do. And also, I have a YouTube channel, so why not film it? It turned out that my son is directly affected by our phone use and told us so on camera right at the end of the film. I'll put the link to the big film at the end of this film. Understand this, it's heartbreaking when your 4-year-old son tells you you don't pay attention enough to him because you're on your phone. And that wasn't just aimed at me, that was aimed at my wife as well. So that choked us both up a little bit, and then we addressed it. And now when we're in the room with him, we're present in the moment. There are no phones unless there needs to be. Sometimes he wants to be on the phone and do that, but that's fine, playing word games and doing all these other things. The other thing is that while he wants to play Lego and do all of that, yeah, you can say you're present with him in the room if your phone's in your hand, but it's not really, is it? Because you're skying something else and it's rubbish. The phone can be used for information, though. If you're finding things out, looking things up, that's all good, but make sure it's done in an interactive way. I'm not trying to preach at anyone, but when my 4-year-old son tells me that I'm not paying the attention he needs, then I need to address it, and I need to make that change, and I have, and I can honestly say that. So is my wife. My hand on my heart now. When he's in the room, the phone isn't always, it's not in my hand. It's not ever present. There's no need to be. I have gadgets and internet around me all day, and that's good. That when I go home, I can concentrate on my family. Right. Weirdly, what started to happen, and you can see this on the thing, is every single night I had anxiety dreams to start with for the first 3 or 4 days, and so did Sid. So Sid was dreaming about snakes taking her on. She's starting a new job, so maybe she's tense about that. She hasn't worked for 5 years because she's had Samuel and she's grown up with him. He's been growing up with her. So anxiety for her, that's fine. I'm not an overly anxious person, but I do get anxiety like everyone else, and it's very quiet at this time of year in the tattoo shop. So maybe that's that. But it's funny that we both gave up our phones in the evening, and then we both got anxiety dreams consistently for 3 nights. I'd like to elaborate on what I said in the big video. Basically, what I'm thinking is that when you ingest all of this information, both subliminally, and you recognise it. So what happens is you fill your brain with all this information you don't necessarily need, but it dulls down the noise of your head, and it dulls down the noise of your own brain and thought processes. And if you do not have that influx of information, mindless or otherwise, every single night, then you actually have enough space in your brain to analyze what you're saying, what you're thinking, what you're doing. And maybe what you're doing doesn't sit well with you, or maybe that space is enough to give your brain a chance to become anxious about things. Deflection is a great way of looking at it. If you're on your phone all the time, you're deflecting away from reality. Escapism, books, phones, whatever, where you enter into another world that you don't have to think for yourself. Everything's provided for you. With books, of course, you provide the narrative in your brain while you're reading. You're creating the pictures in your head, and seeing the story for yourself. But still, somebody else wrote that story. You didn't have to be involved in it. So I think, and it might be valid, it might not. I'm sure there's 100, theologists or you know, psychologists who can tell you about the benefits of stories and all of that, but also, you know, that if you take away the dull noise that's nothing to do with your reality, you're going to start thinking about yourself, you're going to look inwards. And I think that's what happened to me. I don't, you know, the last couple of nights I was used to it. I still, you know, I still had an anxiety dream on both of them nights. So maybe that's a conclusion we can draw from that. But also, you know, you're going to have, if you're addicted to something, there are consequences of your actions if you stop doing it. You know, even sugar, you feel bad, you feel listless, you feel, you know, you feel like you've got no energy if you give up sugar. If you give up, you know, so chocolate and all of that stuff, you give up cocaine. You know, when you've walked down that road, you know, there's the come down, there's all of that. Long-term effects of withdrawal, you know, on things like heroin. Well, obviously you have cold turkey, you have stomach cramps. It's really unpleasant. You know, it comes out of all ends, and it's a very bad place to be. So, you know, a few anxiety dreams to give up your phone isn't the end of the world, but it does show that there are consequences to every action, which I've said all along. You know, I think, again, when Samuel made the point he did about us not paying attention to him, then that brought it home that maybe we pay far too much attention to our phones and our tablets and our devices than we do to the people around us. And that is a sad state of affairs that I have addressed and will continue to do so. It seems a bit odd, me making a video on a phone to be posted to YouTube so you can watch it on your phone, but there's a time and a place for all things. I'm going to leave it there because it'll go on forever. If you would like to subscribe to my videos, then do that. If you want to watch the long video we just made, I'll put it up here. And also, there's one YouTube wants to pick for you. Okay, have a good night. See you tomorrow.